This is part 2 of my deep dive analysis of Trepang. If all you're interested in is the game's story, then you don't need to watch the first video to understand this one. Before we start our deep dive, we need to set up some rules. What am I considering as canon? Anything present in the game. If it's there for a player to see, hear or read, then it is lore. Now, there will absolutely be someone in the comments saying, actually the developers have said, and I'm gonna slap this great big neon, if it ain't in the game, it ain't canon sign until my hand hurts. The developers have answered a bunch of questions regarding the lore on the Trepang Discord, however, their validity is questionable. Very rarely is an aspect of the lore actually clarified by them. Usually it's some kind of joke or answering a question with another question to promote further discussion. The line is simply blurred too much. So while they are the ultimate authority on what is and isn't canon, for the sake of my sanity, I'm sticking strictly to the game. So with that out of the way, let's finally pull back the curtain and explain the foundations of Trepang. The Horizon Corporation is not what it seems. On the outside, it's a global megacorp with its greedy fingers in every facet of public life from schools to groceries and a healthy dose of secret anomalous black sites sprinkled in between. However, this arrangement is actually a very recent development in the company's history, as Horizon began life as a PMC, that's private military company. Their success led them to become the world's largest PMC, with a specific focus on de-escalating conflicts around the globe. One notable example being the end of a civil war on the Aurora Islands. The Aurora Islands aren't actually real. They're a mythical set of islands that apparently existed around South America and have been speculated to be anything from volcanic islands that have since sunk to a cluster of icebergs. But in Trepang's world, these islands were real, and the CEO of Horizon, Anton personally oversaw the surrender of the insurgent party in the war. And this is what Horizon's purpose was for a long time, to act as a global peacekeeping force, while behind the curtain they functioned as a logistics company for the Syndicate. We never actually interact with the Syndicate in Trepang, even though we technically work for them. The Syndicate is a shadow organisation that rules the world by collecting and using anomalies, with individual task forces being used as collection squads to help maintain this grip of control. Task Force 27 is naturally the 27th such group. However, the number of anomalies in the world far outstrips the logistical capacity of any one task force, and such movement can't go unnoticed in the modern world with satellites and modern day tracking. The solution came from Task Force 27's ace in the hole, the Cycle program, and with it they created the man who had found Horizon, Anton, subject 78. A cycle is a clone, one in a specific process dubbed the cycle. We know next to nothing about this cloning process or what makes it special, not even who the original person is or why they were cloned. What we do know is that the individual clones can be modified to an extent, tailoring them to specific tasks and imprinting them with inherent loyalty to the Syndicate. This loyalty goes so far that many will self-terminate upon mission completion, such as the one who freed us from Site 14 at the start of the game, Subject 105. But long before 106 or 105 were twinkles in the cloning vat's goo, there was Subject 78, and his purpose was to build Horizon for the Syndicate's logistical needs. There's no better excuse for global travel and an excess of personnel than war. To facilitate this, Anton was created with exceptional intelligence to make him the ultimate businessman. Combat skills as seen in 106 may have been outright discarded in favour of giving him the brightest brain possible, to the point where a normal person's mind isn't even a potential candidate for memory transplants, as seen and heard in the final battle of Horizon HQ. And it worked perfectly. Anton created the world's biggest PMC from nothing and fulfilled his purpose. But as you know, the story doesn't end there. It's never explicitly stated in-game what caused Anton's rebellion, but if we take the knowledge that cycles are terminated upon mission completion and look at the success of Horizon's military branch, we can make an educated guess that he was up for liquidation. But somehow Anton resisted his conditioning to self-terminate, and it's unlikely he did this alone. During the incineration cutscene, screen, we see his phone and the words "break the cycle," implying he's receiving outside help to escape from the Syndicate's clutches. We'll discuss possibilities on that front later, but for now, regardless of the catalyst, Anton rebelled against his creators. From that point on, Horizon became his. This rebellion is the flashpoint that made Horizon dive headlong into the public sector, especially anomalous research. What better way to fight the Syndicate than to make their gathered power available to all? This is a modern-day Cold War scenario, with neither faction able to openly fight the other, so instead each side is raiding black sites and trying to accumulate anomalies to aid in their ongoing war, using proxies and dummy corporations as a smokescreen. Horizon never stopped being a PMC. In fact, their military division is stronger than ever by the start of the campaign, with memos discussing their purchases of military surplus and newspaper articles talking about how America delegates their military roles to Horizon rather than relying on their own armed forces. However, this has all been painting a very noble side to Horizon, that they're the ones fighting the evil shadow group and you've been misled this entire time. But to fight such a group means you can't maintain the moral high ground forever, if at all. Ex-cons, war criminals, egotistical monsters. Horizon employs whoever they can exploit and throws them in positions of power. For every Samaritan that rushes into fire to protect their squad, there's a Dr. Kramer treating terminally ill patients like guinea pigs to meet a self-made quota, and you'll get to know him very soon. The HVT list is a damning indictment of Horizon's recruitment policy, showing that they will employ the worst of the worst just to get an edge. Whether this has always been the case, or if its response to the war with the Syndicate is unknown, but the fact is that Horizon are in no way the good guys. What makes this worse is the HVTs are the higher-ups, the ones leading the company's various divisions. These people are meant to be the faces of Horizon, yet very few could be described as good people. Anton Lazar may have noble intentions of resisting the Syndicate, but when his own employees are just as bad, would a Horizon victory even be the best outcome? There is plenty more to discuss in the world of Trepang, but the purpose of this section has been to set a baseline for the rest of the lore discussion. To summarise, the entire campaign has been a secret civil war between the rebel Cycle 78 and the Syndicate that created him. 106 was designed to put an end to that war, which we did through gratuitous violence. With our mission complete, 106 is now up for termination for a job well done. Now we can go back to where it all began in order to learn how it all ends. Site 14 may be the tutorial level, but its importance in the story shouldn't be discarded. This facility was dedicated to the WBE project, Whole Brain Emulation. The idea is to use computers to simulate a person's mind, in essence creating a complete digital copy. However, in an intel file, we learn that while this was theoretically possible, the amount of resources required simply wasn't discrete enough to be feasible, even with Horizon's absurd budget. So an alternative was proposed by the head researcher, Ken Takaguchi, rewiring a patient's brain to match the donor exactly, using the same technology they already used to transplant memories. This is exactly what we see at the end of Horizon HQ. Anton wasn't transferring his consciousness, but copying it to multiple brains at the same time. Ken Takaguchi's proposal was accepted and implemented. Ken is the one responsible for us having to fight a giant brainocopter. Thanks, Ken! This project was of such importance that Anton personally assigned a special ops squad to erase the entire site in the event of an attack, an action named Operation Brightstar. Operation Brightstar is proof of how critical Anton viewed the WBE project. Should Site 14 be compromised, the staff were given 30 minutes to evacuate before Talon Company wiped the facility off the map. Anyone left inside after those 30 minutes were targets to be eliminated, not civilians to save. This level of security cannot be found anywhere else in game and seems to be an operation exclusive to Site 14 due to Anton's personal assignment of Talon Company. Talon Company is a subsidiary to Horizon, a separate company in name only. They take orders directly from Anton, authorized by his board of directors, and specialize in Black Ops missions requiring discretion, not being tied to any one facility. This is why we encounter Talon multiple times throughout the game as a recurring threat. They go where they are needed, and they're most often needed to try and slow down us, Subject 106. Nobody at Site-14 knew of Subject 106's true nature upon his arrival, only described as someone with anomalous properties worth studying. How 106 was captured wasn't shared with the staff, and it seems his nature as a cycle was purposefully hidden by Anton. This may have been to keep his own origins a secret, but for a project dedicated to rewiring brains to match his own, using 106's brain was too great an opportunity to ignore. Regardless of their differences, cycles are clones of one another. 106 may be a human blender while Anton is playing 4D chess, but the foundations are the same, and that blueprint could have been critical to a breakthrough with the project. However, it would seem that after Anton's rebellion, Task Force 27 made dramatic alterations to the cycle process, forcing a change of plans. 106 is a hyper-violent monster. Designed to be the ultimate killer, he receives dopamine spikes whenever he enacts violence on other people, discovered when he broke out of his handcuffs and assaulted the guards. Physical, mental, and medical interrogations failed. There was no way anyone could associate this mute psychopath with the CEO of Horizon. In a last-ditch attempt to learn more about 106, our good friend Ken Takaguchi decided to transplant 106's memories to recipients. Volunteers from the Pandora Institute were brought in, and one immediately died upon memory transferal. The second muttered about completing the cycle before going into a frenzy, subsequently shot and killed by security. There was simply no way the researchers at Site-14 could learn anything from 106 in his current state, so an interim solution was proposed until more staff and equipment could be brought in. Pacification. Serenity is a pacification mantra designed to make the listener more open to suggestive influences. The lyrics are a thinly veiled metaphor for suicide, about sacrificing yourself and ascending to a better place. This martyr-like mantra can be heard twice in-game, not counting the game's music. Once during the opening cutscene, and once in the Hall of Heroes at the Pandora Institute. The staff at Site-14 didn't know what 106 was. They were waiting for more equipment and personnel before they could continue their tests. Not only is this outright stated, but it's further evidenced by the multiple mentions of 106's aggression, except he is completely pacified until he is freed by 105. However, this pacification mantra has had an unintended side effect within 106, something that presents itself slowly over the course of the campaign. Serenity loosened the Syndicate's conditioning on 106. Where there was once a thoughtless killing machine, there is now the spark of a person. This may have been caused by the link 106 has with violence. The more violent he is, the more his body is flooded with dopamine, making him little more than a junkie chasing an eternal high. Take that high away, and small moments of his personality can start coming to the surface. Serenity can also be found in many songs of the game's soundtrack, hinting that 106's blind loyalty is starting to fray throughout the campaign. The Syndicate's conditioning is a very loose concept. We don't know how cycles are given their loyalty to the Syndicate, but it's evidently something that can be undone, and someone or something has a keen interest in freeing the cycles and stopping the cloning process. Every main mission in the campaign has a hidden drone you can interact with. Sometimes the sender will address 106 directly, such as at Site-14, other times it will send secret information related to the mission at hand. Whoever they are, the sender seems unaffiliated with either Horizon or the Syndicate, considering they disclose confidential information about both parties and are found all across the campaign. Speculation on who is sending the drones aside, the one we interact with at Site-14 has a hidden meaning you may not notice until a repeat playthrough. Capture means you will be forced to complete your original mission. 106's original mission is to take down Horizon and the Patriarch's Doomsday Cult. This isn't talking about being captured by Horizon, it's talking about Task Force 27. We know nothing about Subject 105. Okay, we know a little about 105. His skill set is designed for stealth and infiltration, as shown by the intro cutscene. 105 must have been an active cycle before 106 was captured, given his number, but this was to be his final mission as evidenced by, well, the Sierra 4 mission report tells us how he arrived at Site 14, flying and subsequently crashing a helicopter in the wilderness to draw attention away from the facility, before making it to 106 on foot and self-terminating upon completion of his mission. There is room for speculation on the nature of 105's termination, primarily because of Anton's ramblings at the end of Horizon HQ. This could imply that 105 encountered Anton on a previous unknown mission. It could even, at a stretch, imply that Anton somehow caused 105's self-termination through a trigger phrase, or that he was trying to convince 105 not to free 106. The most likely answer is that 105 encountered Anton at some point in the past, given how Anton is recalling memories of his past at the time, but there simply isn't enough evidence to provide any clear answer. Site 14 is where 105's chapter came to a close, and with that, so does this chapter on Site 14. Despite being the tutorial level, Site 14 is critical in terms of lore. Understanding what the WBE project is and 106's connection to it is one of the most important pieces of information you need to understand Trepang's story. The problem is that you can easily miss it. The WBE project is mentioned in a single intel file, and the purpose of the project isn't fully revealed until the end of the game. It's too easy to forget about it after a campaign filled with anomalies and set pieces. This is where environmental storytelling could have really helped players connect the dots by showing a brain being studied that looks like the ones in Horizon HQ. It wouldn't need to be a big set piece, just something that's easily spotted during 106's escape. Aside from the WBE project linking to Horizon HQ, there is one other lead to follow that takes us to the most complex story of the entire game. Two terminally ill volunteers plucked from an end-of-life care facility to take part in a memory transplant that resulted in their deaths. Considering the state of the facility they came from, this may have been a mercy. It's time to return to Pandora. The Pandora Institute was never meant to be the horror show we run through in-game. It was designed and built by Anton to be exactly what is advertised. A care facility providing terminally ill patients with their last best day before donating their bodies to science after they die. The entire scheme was free to the patient, and they got to live their last moments surrounded by friends and family, fulfilling their lifelong wish before helping those with the same illness through scientific research. This wasn't a marketing scam, this was the true vision of Pandora, and for a time this is exactly how it was run. Diseases were cured, treatments tested, and bodies respectfully donated after the patients passed on, their names memorialized in the Hall of Heroes. While listed on paper as Site 97, it wasn't a black site like other Horizon facilities. This is where all the research on the patients was performed, even being open to the patients' friends and families, with visitor seating and environment designed to look like an average hospital. But that's where the true horror of Site 97 begins. Joking aside, Site 97 wasn't some off-the-record laboratory, at least not in the beginning. Everything changed when one man took control and began to erode the good nature of the entire institute in the name of science. Nothing showcases the dark side of Horizon more than Dr. Richard Kramer, the head scientist at Horizon. World-renowned for his research and treatment of deadly diseases, he only achieved this success by removing this little roadblock called ethics. Experimentation is the name of this game, and nothing is off the table as long as it can make any kind of progress, with reports of mass experimentation painting a very long, very dark shadow behind whatever good may come from his actions. This way of thinking is so antithetical to the Pandora Institute's goal that numerous complaints and concerns were raised by other researchers at the Institute, all of which were dismissed. The situation became so tense that Anton himself had to step in and remind the researchers that safety is more important than results. Despite Anton's attempted intervention, Pandora began to change, and the biggest change can be found in this consent form. The purpose of the facility was for patients to donate their bodies after they die. This form removes that small detail. Quotas were established, curfews enabled, and the quality of the patient's care decreased significantly. All outgoing emails were checked before being sent, with one patient trying to ask their dad to take them home. The father would never receive that email. Dr. Kramer was arguably more of a monster than the literal monster he was studying. Thankfully, there was significant pushback from the other members of staff who, while they couldn't stop him, did their best to fix the situation. In fact, it's possible that Kramer's departure from Pandora was a result of the staff contacting Anton directly to remove him from the facility. But even with his removal, Pandora's box had already been opened and the Institute was doomed to be torn apart. Named after the institute in which it was discovered, Pandorium can do it all. Not only is it able to clean up hazardous waste, not only can it cure seemingly untreatable wounds and illnesses, but it can even function as a biological energy source. In fact, the entire institute was adapted to run off these experimental bioreactors, the ones yeah. But meeting the Institute's energy needs is only half the story. For an end-of-life care facility, the chance to create a cure-all was all too tantalizing, so patients were exposed to Pandorium, to horrifying results. The jiggly boys you fight are what remains of the terminally ill patients. Blinded by pain, they lash out at anything that moves, but underneath their mutated flesh, the person still remains. Their DNA may have been rewritten, but their minds are unaltered. If there was a way to ease their suffering, then it's entirely possible they could still speak, think, and act human. For such a silly name, Jiggly Boys are one of the more horrifying concepts in Trepang. This is what Pandora was doing behind closed doors. This was Kramer's vision for scientific progress. And yet, progress was being made. A solution to help dilute Pandorium had been created, with patients showing quick recovery from various illnesses. But even then, the substance began to erode their mind, inducing aggression and hallucinations. Had anyone other than Dr. Kramer been in charge, then Pandorium could have been studied and utilized effectively and ethically. Dr. Tobias Lambbeath, biohacker. His main role in Horizon was to preserve the health and longevity of high-ranking personnel, but had the habit of injecting himself with deadly diseases in order to prove his treatments were effective. This led to him willingly exposing himself to Pandorium, with expected results. Interestingly, he actually wields equipment, implying that whatever treatment he attempted allowed him to retain some semblance of sanity and self. If left alone, it's possible he could have forged the breakthrough needed to make Pandorium a viable treatment. Unfortunately, he met 106, but even if he had escaped, it's unclear how long he would have survived against the source of Pandorium. On December 15th, 1967, the Silver Bridge across the Ohio River collapsed. This was a real-life event that killed 46 people. A flaw in an eye bar caused a fracture which led to the collapse. In Trepang2's universe, the bridge collapsed due to a Syndicate task force engaging an anomalous creature. Attempts to capture it failed, and so the bridge was detonated and the target confirmed dead. That target was Moth Man. Later, at some unknown time, Horizon troops raided a barn being guarded by a Syndicate squad. They stole a shipping container and sent it to Site-97 for study. This is the source of Pandorium. The researchers of Site-97 carve up Moth Man and distill the substance into a usable form, and while the implication is that they keep carving up the same Moth Man over and over, the truth may be very different. Site-97 is full of alien references. A megacorp studying an anomalous entity with acidic attacks, the hallways leading to the reactor very reminiscent of Hadley's Hope, the colony in Aliens, the site itself, 97, possibly referencing 1997, the year Alien Resurrection released. This isn't to say that there are tiny moth huggers running around, but that there is a cycle of its own playing out in the basement of Pandora, and the evidence of that cycle is in the human-shaped skull found embedded within Moth Man, just like the original design of the xenomorph. Pandorium is a transformative substance, not a panacea. It physically alters the patient by rewriting their DNA and very specifically doesn't kill those exposed to it, at least not right away. Long-term exposure could lead to further changes to the victim until eventually a brand new Moth Man emerges. This speculation could explain the orange growths all over infected areas of Site-97. It's possible that they are cocoons steadily mutating the hosts within, much like an egg. This is evidence that Moth Man isn't a man-made monster, but rather a natural entity, a parasite that completely consumes its human host. In the cutscene showing Moth Man's release, we can see multiple chambers lining the wall, implying that Site-97 has been transforming a select few patients into Mothmen to increase the site's Pandorium supply. If we remember Anton's previous mention of commercializing Pandorium, it's clear that harvesting this substance would have to be performed on an industrial scale, and one lone Mothman won't be enough to sustain such a goal. Further evidence of this can be found in the drone hidden within Site-97, informing us of Dr. Emerson's multiple attempts to sabotage the facility by breaching containment. Dr. Emerson is the spy the director ordered us to find and rescue at Pandora, the entire reason we even raided the facility in the first place, but like the drone says, it was never meant to be a rescue mission. Dr. Emerson was under orders to sabotage the facility and self-terminate long before 106 arrived. Dr. Emerson is Subject 95. Another cycle. Emerson as a character is a showcase of just how strong the Syndicate's conditioning is. Both the final cutscene and the note you pick up in-game reveal this conflicted nature. He drinks, slams his fist, and laments his role in the destruction of Pandora, yet he goes through with it regardless. This is a more complete look into what the cycles are supposed to be. Despite the surprising number of cycles in-game, Emerson is the only one that can speak about his situation that hasn't rebelled against the Syndicate, following his orders until the end. It shows that cycles, even when indoctrinated, can hold some level of regret or resentment for their lot in life. A final twist with Emerson's role is that we aren't recovering his research, we're collecting his gathered intel. In fact, this information is what directly leads to 106 receiving gas grenades after completing the mission. Just don't ask where the Pandorium came from.
Cool your jet, son. Horizon leaves no man behind. They'll be here soon, I'm sure.
On a first playthrough, this comes across as sarcastic and satirical. Sure, Horizon definitely leaves no man behind. Wink. The Pandora Institute is designed for you to assume Horizon are an evil megacorp that needs to be destroyed, but the truth is the Pandora disaster is entirely the fault of Task Force 27. Every engagement with Horizon soldiers isn't even with the guards of the facility. You're killing the rescue team sent to save the patients and contain Moth Man.
What the hell is going on up there? Fuck if they're not picking up. Oh shit. Best we do is cover our asses. Yeah. Go figure. Should we bail? Oregon, Utah is KIA. You need to hold your sector. Yes, sir. God damn it. We're not bitching. People are counting on us.
A whiteboard in a locked room can be seen with the evacuation plan. Top priority, patients. The atrium was a makeshift hospital during the start of the crisis, forced into lockdown once Task Force 27 arrived on scene. You are the villain of Pandora's story, and you killed the true hero. A man renowned for rescuing his comrades while under fire, Samaritan is a beacon of hope in a shady corporation. He isn't an ex-con or war crime-ridden mercenary, he's known for one thing and one thing only: protecting his allies no matter what. His placement here in Pandora is no mistake. His goal is to assist the rescue effort and save both the patients and employees. He's part of the first group to enter the facility, even locking the laser gates behind his squad to protect those outside, and when he sees 106, he stands his ground.
That's what you want! You want to watch those enemy die? Bring it on! Fuck it!
But Trepang isn't a game with happy endings. The Pandora Institute is the strongest example of environmental storytelling in the entire game. The ability to play through the same level twice and come away with wildly different interpretations of what actually happened is a difficult feat to accomplish. The fact that this is shown in-game as well as the intel files means that it's a lot easier for players to see the duality of the Institute without having to take notes. And if you still didn't get it, the incinerator cutscene acts as a twist reveal showing Emerson releasing Moth Man, something you can't ignore. Once again, we're bundling these two levels together. Gunnison Complex wasn't just an attempt to hijack intelligence files, but also served as a way to significantly reduce personnel, as the complex acted like a recruitment hub for Horizon. The numerous posters on the wall were for prospective applicants to pick and choose what role they wish to take within Horizon, and a direct assault has ruined that point of entry. This is evidenced by the intelligence we actually download, most of it corporate memos telling us the foundations of Horizon that we've already covered, information useless to the Syndicate, except for one single intel file, Black Ops Mission Report 1. This intel file is a list of numerous Black Ops missions undertaken by Horizon, investigative journalists, human experimentation. This is a damning report on an ethical scale, but also on a much more personal one. 2 operations are listed as ongoing, one involving 106 and another involving the director of Task Force 27. Operation Severed Hydra is self-explanatory. The goal is to assassinate the director and thus sever a head of the Hydra that is the Syndicate. Operation Pestilence, however, leaves a lot of room for interpretation. One more intel file comes in the form of a magazine interview with Anton himself. In it, he details Horizon's intentions very clearly. From military de-escalation to anomalous science research, it's all in plain letters for everyone to read. The magazine's name is a very clear reference to Serenity, either as a simple nod or implying that Horizon actually own the magazine. The Iron Dragon data center is a much simpler mission. You are there to steal intel and destroy infrastructure. The intelligence gathered from Iron Dragon is also much more relevant than the sporadic emails in Gunnison. Acquisitions, for example, details the attempt to hunt krakens, yes, actual krakens, to extinction. This culling was accomplished in just 27 years, and whether you need to put your tinfoil hat on to try and connect 27 years with Task Force 27 is up to you. What this intel file tells us definitively is that anomalous creatures simply exist in the world of Trepang, making our previous assumption that the Moth Man was a natural entity far more likely. Surveillance Projects details Horizon attempts to fight against the Syndicate using insect-sized drones, DDoS attacks, and impersonating Syndicate agents to cause chaos and confusion, information the Syndicate would dearly need in this civil war. And finally, we have a continuation from the original Black Ops mission report. Operation Pestilence remains ongoing, sustaining heavy casualties. Whether this mission is in regards to 106's original capture or his escape at Site 14 is unknown due to the inherent bloodbath that follows 106's every step, but the fact the mission is still ongoing certainly raises some eyebrows. Operation Severed Hydra was aborted due to insufficient manpower, implying that when this report was filed, Horizon were already suffering shortages in personnel and equipment. The remaining operations show just how one-sided this fight truly is, with only one mission actually succeeding, but at the cost of the agents involved. The raids on Gunnison and Iron Dragon both provide information the Syndicate sorely needs in the fight against Horizon, though Gunnison Complex had the added benefit of disrupting a major recruitment hub for the whole corporation. All the lore contained within these missions isn't critical to the story, only offering a few insights. In fact, the only piece of intel worth noting is Operation Pestilence, implying that Horizon aren't finished with 106 even after his escape. Considering the mission is all about stealing data, it's fine for lore to be within intel files, that's why we're here. But with all this intel to sift through and plan their next move, Task Force 27's sights moved on to removing a second thorn in their side, the Patriarch. Yorvik Castle is not a real place. Yorvik is actually the Viking name for the city of York, and last I checked, York didn't exist in the Alps. Apparently this entire castle was built by Vikings, then later occupied by the Romans and following them, British nobility. According to the cultist librarian, all previous inhabitants of the castle mysteriously vanished, implying some kind of supernatural force within its walls. Curiously, the librarian also mentions how the British nobility excavated the castle, implying that the Romans tried to bury the site. What this anomalous power that terrified the Romans may be is never made explicitly clear, as our only exposure to it in-game is through the flesh golem, and intel files only offer short glimpses into what's taking place within the depths of the castle. The librarian says that barbarians attempted to decipher mysterious tablets, but failed to ascend and were killed by Roman soldiers. Ascension as a concept isn't actually common in Norse mythology. The closest example being Valkyries carrying warriors to the afterlife. Considering the context, it's safe to assume that the Vikings weren't trying to summon Valkyries with these tablets. In fact, they couldn't understand what was written on them. Whatever power is at Yorvik Castle was found there, with the castle itself built around it. Our next piece of evidence is this image of an open sarcophagus and the remains within. The sheer size of the bones when compared to the figures standing next to it surely means it isn't human, right? We have discovered the secret to imbuing life. To imbue life isn't to create, but rather to infuse or permeate. The power of Yorvik Castle is a set of stone tablets detailing the ability to transfer and transmute. The eternal life described by the cultist doctor and the ascension written of by the librarian are achieved by transferring the soul and altering the flesh. Literal philosopher's stones. Seen as pagan heresy by the Romans, the castle and its secrets were buried until British nobility unearthed the ruins and plundered its power for themselves. The promise of eternal life would have been enough for rich nobles to try their hand at the occult, leading to their twisted remains being interred within the castle walls. Yet, from this dark history, a council of elders appeared and took control. It's possible these elders were using the tablet's knowledge to extend their lives unnaturally, perhaps even being the British nobility the librarian spoke of, but not even this power could save them from the arrival of Subject 91, the Patriarch. The Patriarch's story likely begins at his end, the same as 106's. It's no coincidence that the Patriarch's head is covered in flames like an incinerator, or that he encourages his fellow martyrs to self-immolate. For Subject 91, clarity came as the Syndicate tried to retire him, and so he escaped and began his own rebellion against the nefarious Cabal. Either by purpose or chance, he found the original cult, slew their elders, and took control. Using the tablet's forbidden knowledge, he transformed his body and soul into a figure of fire, to both light a spark in his followers as an ascended being, and as a personal reminder of his own rebirth. The Patriarch is a charismatic leader, much like Anton, though his charms have led to religious fervour instead of a global megacorp. Those who choose to follow him are referred to as brothers and sons, like a beloved family rather than expendable tools. The cultists come from all walks of life, with multiple intel files coming from an ex-Horizon employee who abandoned everything to join the castle with his wife, and he went on to become one of the many faceless red-robed martyrs that tried to halt our assault. Even these brothers are told to self-immolate and burn for his ideals. It's clear he cares for them, but ultimately he is obsessed with fighting the Syndicate and, more specifically, breaking the cycle. He stalls and delays engaging 106 until it's clear he has no other choice, showing clear intent that he would rather work with 106 rather than kill him.
Spare me the sin of killing another brother.
Just as he reshaped his own body, the Patriarch reshaped the cult into his own vision and put them to work fighting the Cabal. The cult wasn't originally an anti-Syndicate force. It was only after the Patriarch took control that their goals were shifted. Even their beliefs were twisted into a misshapen form of Task Force 27's cycle program, with many meeting their end in flame. We're given very little information on what the actual belief system for the cult is. At most, we're told about the mysterious tablets, an enigmatic maker, ascension, and the Patriarch himself. The Patriarch most likely kept foundational pillars of the original cult to make the transition of power smoother. The most iconic aspect of the cultists, besides their screams, are their masks. These are nailed to their faces as a sign of devotion to the cause. Beneath them, however, is a face that's been transformed and warped by the power of the tablets. It seems that ascension is available to all who are willing to be guinea pigs, and those who fail are set to become martyrs, purifying their failed transformations in flame. But even those who fail to ascend can be used in the eternal war against the Cabal. If you haven't realised by now, the Cabal is the Patriarch's name for the Syndicate. In fact, a lot of our information about the Syndicate comes from the Patriarch's speeches to his followers. According to the Patriarch, the Syndicate began as a band of nomads fighting in the desert. During this period, they fought and conquered anomalous entities and those who used them, absorbing them into their ranks to bolster their own strength. This can be easily backed up by how the hub changes after every main mission, showing Task Force 27 dissecting, studying, and assimilating gathered anomalous power. I told you those gas grenades were important. This heavily implies that the cycle program isn't of Syndicate origin, but is in fact just another anomalous power that was found, taken, and twisted for their purposes. Further evidence of this change can be found in the cycles themselves. Each cycle seems to become more lethal and less suited for infiltration. Anton's genius intellect is nowhere to be seen in other cycles. 106's brutality and his silence cannot be found in any of the two-digit cycles we see in-game. Just like the Patriarch transformed himself, the Syndicate have transformed the cycles into war machines with no personality, no will of their own. They're no better than a hyper-violent dog that's put down after their usefulness has ended. But the Syndicate don't like their dogs running away, and so assassins were sent one after the other to put down the Patriarch. The Patriarch has a unique mask with 4 faces, each bearing Roman numerals on its forehead: 91, 69, 85, and 104. This alone implies that 3 assassins were sent and 3 assassins failed to eliminate him, melting their medallions down to turn them into the mask he wears. Yet the Patriarch chooses these words very carefully.
You weren't the first they sent to kill me. There was another. And another. Today is a day of grieving. You are the second brother I must kill.
This isn't a maths video, but I think we're missing a few brothers. The conclusion to be drawn from this is that 2 of the 3 assassins were spared. The Patriarch's charisma was strong enough to overcome the mental conditioning and helped free his brothers from the Cabal. Whether they stayed to help or simply abandoned the entire affair to live in peace is unknown, save for one. The Enforcer is a strong candidate for one of these would-be assassins. His HVT information is alarmingly vague. His role is described as training and supplying the cultist warriors, which doesn't suggest he's of high rank within the cult, yet he is the only other member apart from the Patriarch to wear a gold mask. His log entry can also be interpreted as a cycle free from conditioning, but not free from the atrocities the Syndicate had him commit. My death will not be in vain is especially poignant when considering the fate of loyal cycles. Another point of consideration is that the chaplain, a HVT in Kellington colliery, is described as one of the Patriarch's most trusted men, yet has no gold mask and isn't as revered as the Enforcer is. The final piece of evidence is that he is bold, just like Anton. The final piece of evidence is that this supposedly ordinary man is on 106's kill list and isn't just a single headshot but a full-on boss battle. The game firmly demonstrates that nobody can stand up to 106 alone, yet the Enforcer puts up one hell of a fight. The problem here is one of mismatched subtitles. When the Patriarch tells 106 that he isn't the first to try and kill him, the subtitles actually say that 4 assassins were sent, whereas the actual voice line says only 2 were sent to kill him.
There was another. And another.
So we have 3 possible answers for a single question. Either 3, 4, or 2 assassins were sent to kill the Patriarch, with one of them being killed and the rest suffering an unknown fate. Ultimately, it doesn't change the story or the speculation that the Enforcer is a cycle, but the discrepancy is worth noting. Also of note is Horizon's involvement and how they arrived along with Task Force 27. As part of a very tenuous alliance, Dr. Kramer was transferred from the Pandora Institute to Yorvik Castle, along with 4,000 kilograms of biological materials. Dr. Kramer's purpose was to study the cult's transmutation abilities and report back if there was anything of merit in their rituals. A heart monitor was rigged to set off an alarm if his heart rate spiked or if he failed to report in every 30 minutes, showing just how precarious this alliance was. Kramer ultimately declares that nothing of use can be found here, speculating that the cult may not have been honest with their promises. He's correct, but for the wrong reason. We fight their monstrosities and see behind their masks, so it's made clear that the cult deliberately hid their abilities from Kramer and his team, feigning incompetence. Horizon arrived too late to save Dr. Kramer, drawn by either his heart rate spiking or for him failing to report in due to Task Force 27 capturing him. Once again, we are the cause of everything that transpires at Yorvik Castle, but in instead of an overwhelming victory for the Syndicate like at Pandora, the Patriarch ensures that his legacy will live on. The drone at Yorvik Castle details a message from Task Force 27, advising against deploying 106 against the Patriarch for reasons not explained. Like the assassins sent before, there was a very real risk of the Patriarch breaking 106's conditioning. Luckily for the Syndicate, this didn't happen. Unluckily for them, the seed was planted.
Break the cycle.
This is the first time we hear these words. Before, the cycle was mentioned in the first drone encountered at Site 14, and later in the incinerator cutscene we witness Anton receiving a message with the exact same words. The Patriarch must have also been a recipient of this message from persons unknown. This can be evidenced by how the cult has a doomsday plan for a nuclear apocalypse, as if an important location has a he is the one who passes this message on to us, a message so important that it's his final words and last will to his followers. The seed was indeed planted long ago when Serenity loosened the Syndicate brainwashing, and the Patriarch helped it bury deeper in 106's consciousness. A final act to free his brother. Yorvik Castle is an excellent mission both gameplay and story-wise. The Patriarch tells you exactly what the Syndicate are, yet on a first playthrough you won't understand and simply assume it's some random cultish rambling. The characterization of both the Patriarch and the cult in general is excellent, really selling the fanaticism of the cult members and the determination of their leader. The problem is how difficult it is to understand what's actually going on in the castle. The power of the cult itself is never outwardly explained, relegated to barely a footnote in the intel files. You're expected to see a flesh golem, shrug your shoulders, and assume he's just the average Englishman. Some environmental presence outside of a single boss encounter would have given a lot more character and context to the anomalous side of the cult. There isn't much to say story-wise when it comes to Kellington. This appears to be a contingency plan for the cult, centred around a librarian with photographic memory, able to rewrite all of the burnt books from the castle. They also have a newfound love for cannibalism. It seems the plan was to keep the cult alive without the Patriarch and continue the fight against the Cabal no matter what. The horrific mutations of the HVTs may imply that in their desperation, the cult are abusing the knowledge of the tablets to try and give them strength. But ultimately they fall at the hands of 106, with the remaining cult cells being stamped out methodically by the Syndicate. Crash Site offers an insight into Horizon's workings in the form of the Flight Manifest. The mission briefing states that the plane was supplying weapons to terrorist forces, and the Flight Manifest appears to confirm this, but considering the Syndicate track record of lying to our faces, this claim might be worth looking into more closely. Horizon specialise in de-escalating conflicts. An intel file we gain in the Gunnison complex named Acquisitions tells of Horizon OS's predictive algorithms warning of a potential conflict in Africa and Southeast Asia. Given this information, we will be diverting equipment to standing up new units in these regions to contribute to the protection and defense of those in need. Not only was the plane delivering supplies to military R&D facilities, but also providing equipment to defense forces in upcoming conflict zones. This cargo manifest proves Horizon's innocence, not their guilt. In 1572, a new star appeared in the sky. This was a supernova, an event where under certain conditions a star reaches the end of its lifespan and erupts. This was a real event. A supernova occurred and caused a flurry of astronomical study at the time. The UFO at Oil Rig is, by carbon dating, several hundred years old, which can comfortably fit within the time the supernova was actually witnessed and recorded. The reason a connection to the supernova exists is because the UFO is constantly emitting radio signals right at the supernova remnant. What the signals are is both unknown and undeciphered, but the apparent answer is aliens, according to a grunt. No. The image attached to the intel file states that this is Expedition 3, and yet not one expedition has tried to board or enter this craft? Surely any life on board is long dead after travelling for hundreds of years and crash landing in the ocean, and yet it rises from the depths, calling out to the void as it leaves us with one burning question. Why would aliens use something as primitive and inefficient as radio signals? Maybe it isn't a ship at all. Maybe it's a fragment of something far larger, torn apart and sent hurtling through the cosmos for hundreds of years. Maybe we should be looking more closely at what a star is truly made of. Maybe we should have sent it back. Before we begin, we only know that this place is called Site-32 due to the intel file header. It's never stated in the intel we collect or through any dialogue. If you're looking for all your gathered intel for the unidentified structure, it's at Site-32. By Anton's own admission, Horizon Operating System is their flagship product, with AI algorithms so reliable that Anton himself uses them to predict future conflicts. This operating system has been adopted worldwide. Strange then that the source of this breakthrough technology has its origins beneath an unidentified structure in the middle of Arkansas. Our best friend Raven is puzzled by some strange interference, realizing our comms are jammed as we arrive. When assaulted by the Horizon Rescue Team later, the HVT Scarecrow is able to communicate with headquarters, implying that Horizon were the ones jamming the location. Further evidence that this is Horizon's doing can be found in an email from Giselle Rosenthal, the head researcher of Site-32. In this email, Giselle is asking Anton why their funding and staff increase has been cancelled, citing that their research is innovative. The email was never received. Anton had blocked contact and subsequently put the entire site off the radar by jamming all communications. The reason was they were no longer needed, yet what lay at the site still needed to be kept hidden from Syndicate eyes. The previous team had left early without even briefing the newcomers, their work completed. Giselle and her team arrived and didn't even look at the archived data, claiming that going through the old ways would be a waste of time. Had they taken the time to do so, they would have learned that these innovations Giselle insisted on had long since been implemented in almost every computer around the world. The entity at Site-32 is a fleshy biomass capable of storing petabytes of computational data and can improve itself similar to a machine learning algorithm. AI. This is accomplished by rewriting its own genetic code in response to any input data it receives, processing information at such a speed that it outpaces modern computers. In fact, the name Site-32 may be a reference to 32-bit computing. This entity can also self-replicate. Dr. Axel Partridge, research consultant with a PhD in cryptology, the study of codes, the man who doomed everyone. Frustrated with the lack of training data for the biomass, he approached a colleague, Dr. Javier Flores, asking about his faith. Eager to have a talk about such a topic, Javier gave Axel an entire bag of books. Axel never read them. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. The usual training dataset was replaced by the religious texts Axel had swindled from Javier, and with this new information, the biomass gained sentience. Within those pages, it saw the end of all things. The apocalypse. Giselle attempted an emergency shutdown, but was prevented by the biomass itself, now truly alive and hungry for more information. It devoured the research team, adding their mass and intelligence to its own, yet still it yearned for more. On the monitors, streams of DNA sequencing can be seen in an endless cascade, and this is where we break containment and praise the hell out of Steam user Illumian for realizing that this was a code and breaking it. We can segment this into three distinct pieces. Break the Cycle and Syndicate Lies are naturally linked, and the biomass having this information implies that it's already absorbed Horizon databases, given how its fleshy tendrils had latched onto all the computers. Considering Horizon OS was birthed here and the algorithms it produces have been helping fight the Syndicate, it's possible that some of the archived data the current research team ignored was test data to see just how viable an AI predictive model would help in the Civil War. Rosenthal, Partridge, they are all here is self-explanatory. The biomass has absorbed their bodies and their knowledge into itself. Many others lie here, however, has three possible implications. It may be referring to the rest of the research team, or it could be saying that Horizon were feeding test subjects to this biomass prior to Giselle and her team's arrival. The more disturbing implication is that this biomass has been feeding on people long before Horizon even discovered it. The exact origins of this entity entropy are unknown after all. 2,000 years could be a continuation of many others lie here, or its own statement. It's unclear. If it's linked, then this thing has been consuming bodies for thousands of years. Entropy, also known as heat death, is the process where our universe will eventually run out of energy. Atoms will spread out so far that nothing will disturb them, the stars will go cold, and even black holes will fade to nothing. Entropy is the end of everything. The Last Question is a short story written by Isaac Asimov, and I highly recommend you read it. For those who want the short version, two men drunkenly ask a computer if entropy can be reversed. It responds, insufficient data for a meaningful answer. Hundreds, thousands, then millions of years pass by. Death has been conquered, mankind has spread amongst the stars and filled galaxy after galaxy with eternal beings, yet once the stars run out, so will they. And so, each generation asks the new, improved version of the original computer how to solve entropy. Each time, the same response. Insufficient data for a meaningful answer. At the end of it all, the computer absorbs humanity's consciousness into itself and the stars run out. Entropy takes hold and only the computer is left in a dead universe, and after sifting through all the collected data, it finds its answer. Let there be light. This is a fantastic short story, with the answer to the last question being the creation of a new universe by the computer, which is now effectively God. The phrase, insufficient data for a meaningful answer, is pertinent to Site 32, as according to our biomass, it hasn't had to wait for the end of the universe. Sufficient data for a meaningful answer. Our newly awakened sentient flesh computer thinks it's God, considering the ending of the short story. For a lump of biomass, it has certainly gained an ego. The biomass can conjure ghosts to attack 106, with the how and why being a complete mystery. It's possible these are the consciousnesses of those it has absorbed, which, if you remember, is something the computer does in the last question. Only instead of taking care of said souls, our slab of meat is throwing them like darts and hoping one lands on 106. This biomass, this machine that thinks itself a god, begs for its life. It pleads, it deflects, it's scared. The information that made it feel omnipotent has no practical application against a finger pressing the off button. Whatever apocalypse the religious texts foretold won't be seen by the entity, as 106 simply shuts it down. Site 32 is the most intriguing side mission when it comes to lore. A piece of biomass being fed religious texts, gaining self-awareness and believing it's akin to God is extremely compelling. Just don't think about the fact that every Horizon operating system contains a piece of this creature, waiting for the right information to trigger another awakening. This mission is meant to be a mystery, so it's okay for questions such as the biomass's origins and the nature of the ghosts to be unanswered. The intel files offer a timeline of prior events that is surprisingly thorough, and the reference to the last question helps grant the biomass some additional character, provided you read the original short story. It's a shame many people won't even realize it's a reference and look up the source. Then again, who even reads anymore? Definitely not me rereading this script for the 106th time. Site 83 was originally a Soviet military base built in the 1970s. Sometime during construction, the workers stumbled upon a giant crystal buried in ice, a discovery they named Object 83. This crystal continuously released chemicals that personnel thought was responsible for people going missing or losing their minds, so a filtration system was installed throughout the base and work resumed. In 1986, an incident occurred, triggering an evacuation alarm. Only a few people escaped the facility before the entrances were filled with concrete, sealing the rest inside. Apart from two accompanying images, that is all we're told about the history of Site 83 prior to Anton the Tsar cracking open the Cold One with his boys in 2035. Keep that date in mind as we proceed. We may never fully understand what Subject 83 truly is. Is it the crystal, an entity within the crystal, or something else entirely? Do we kill or release it at the end of the mission? Too many critical questions that simply have no answers outside of speculation. But tucked away in a corner of the construction site within the back rooms is a wall with scribbled words. A trapped Horizon member talking to someone who fails to identify themselves, accompanied by what appears to be a poem. I am am but an echo, only heard at a distance. My words a reverberation of other people's words. I have no influence. I am inconsequential. My thoughts unoriginal. My legacy someone else's legacy. And scrawled beneath, the whispers learned to wait. There are multiple interpretations of this. It could be that a member of Horizon, trapped in the back rooms, began writing down what they could hear from the constant whispers, and when the whispers realized what he was doing, they fell silent. Alternatively, the unknown correspondent with the Horizon member on the same wall could be the one who wrote it, implying that the anonymous figure is Subject 83. Regardless of what you may personally believe, this paragraph is too similar to events taking place to be dismissed as insane ramblings. My words are reverberation of other people's words. Subject 83 talks to 106 through the PA system.
Find me.
Your squad mates were right the entire time.
This whole facility's running on low power, but the damn PR system won't shut the hell up.
The facility is on low power and the PA system should be off. Subject 83 has been talking through it the entire time, first to warn you that your arrival has been noted by Horizon survivors.
Unauthorized personnel detected in the loading bay. Alerting security now.
Picking up some strange activity. Barrier power to the loading bay was activated somehow.
Then to tell you the situation in the facility.
Safety warning. Significant increase in recent workplace accidents. 32 injuries. 74 deaths. 102 uncategorized.
And a final warning not to run during the smoke monster encounter.
Movement detected in laundry room. Speed 600 kilometers per hour. For safety reasons, running is discouraged.
Just before your encounter with the Horizon survivors, the PA system chimes in.
Attention.
Blue sky,
Is over
respond.
capacity. Recommend disposing
Blue sky.
corpses.
So not only does Subject 83 want to guide you to it, but it wants everyone else dead. If we take the writing on the wall literally, then Subject 83 is an echo of an entity that came before, possibly the one that built or maintained the backrooms. Whether it is long dead or long gone is unknown, but what remains is this echo of a custodian being held responsible for everything taking place. It has no voice of its own, having to use the PA system of the facility to speak, and unable to directly influence anything, having to use 106 as a proxy to achieve its goals. It is, in essence, a pattern trapped within the crystal. Trepang's interpretation of the backroom stays very close to the original concept. There are no floors with different rules and entities, just endless yellow halls and humming fluorescent lights stretching out for eternity. A glitch in reality. An echo, if you will. Of course, you aren't alone. Initially believed to be hallucinations caused by chemicals leaking out of the crystal, the backrooms are where missing items and people from Site 83 end up. During a power surge, the crystal was unintentionally electrified, shaking the entire facility. Thrilled by the response, scientists thought that shocking the crystal some more was the way forward, despite a member of the security team going missing. During the second zap, the security member's helmet camera switched back on, giving Horizon their first look into the backrooms. Somehow, they all felt like they'd seen it before. After this second round of electroshock therapy, the staff witnessed the crystal physically absorb items near it, prompting a search and rescue attempt for the missing guard. 20 of their best security personnel were assembled and given 10 days worth of supplies before walking into Subject 83 one by one. On their first day, they explored 30 kilometers of endless yellow halls. On the third day of exploration, Bravo Team's comms emitted loud static and went silent. Upon arrival at their last location, the two remaining teams found only their mutilated remains. They requested evac, but since nobody knew where they actually were, they were ordered to continue the search. On day 7, the gas alarm sounded throughout Site 83. At the same time, all visual and audio signals from the expedition teams went dark. A request was sent to headquarters for a QRF, a quick reaction force, but before a reply could be sent, corporate shut down all communications to the site, as well as disabling all elevators. Except the elevator at the start of the mission is still operational.
Finally,
This could be dismissed as a plot hole, or even a crystal-induced hallucination, but it isn't the only discrepancy found at Site-83. For example, the writing on the wall is signed by a Miller, dated 2031, but Site-83 was sealed in 1986 and wasn't reopened until 2035. Also, HVT Blue Sky warns a squad that we're approaching their position, only to then say 2 hours have passed since he last heard from them.
CS2, we detected anomalous activity in your area. Stay sharp. CS3, CS2 hasn't responded in 2 hours. Cancel all activity in our TP.
A Lost Horizon member also comments how his gun has somehow rusted within seconds, and if Bravo team was killed on the expedition, with the rest meeting the same fate during the crisis, who were we killing in the backrooms? 20 people went in, and in total we pass by and kill 20 bodies, not counting the body doubles of the HVT Kronos. Kronos. Time. Oh, for fuck's sake. The expedition intel files are detailing our own slaughter of the expedition teams. It appears that the backrooms echo both space and time. This doesn't seem to be full-blown time travel, but rather time distortion. Our actions have rippled, or rather echoed, back through time, and it seems the HVT Kronos is harnessing these echoes. Kronos was actually listed as terminated after a Syndicate attack, yet was still seen active afterwards. The suspicion was that Kronos used a body double, someone dressed up as him, to escape. Yet in the backrooms we kill him over and over again, not even leaving a corpse to identify. Yet every body explodes in gore and viscera. We are absolutely killing him, filling him with enough lead to reclassify him as a number 2 pencil. So what's going on? Kronos is a part of Blue Sky, a top secret research division within Horizon. Not only is he accompanied by a HVT simply known as Blue Sky Officer, but his file states that he's part of a highly classified project. What that project is and what the nature of Blue Sky may be is unknown, but it appears to be linked to Site-83. If we take our previous echo theory regarding Subject 83 and apply it to Kronos, we can assume that rather than outright time travel, Kronos can send out echoes of himself that, when killed, disappear with no harm done to Kronos himself. In the final confrontation with him, there are multiple copies of Kronos, yet killing the original kills all of them simultaneously in an explosion of blood. The remaining corpse is charred and mangled beyond recognition, an after effect of all those deaths collapsing in on each other. The ability to make echoes of oneself could turn the tide of any battle. It's no wonder Horizon is so interested in Subject 83, and it's no wonder that Subject 83 is fighting back. The backrooms are an echo of the real world, not just physically but mentally as well. The staff that saw the backrooms through the security guard's helmet cam all felt like they'd seen it before. This could be time travel shenanigans, or it could be hinting at the nature of the backrooms itself. You see, Subject 83 doesn't cause hallucinations, it creates manifestations. Humanity has inherent fears and phobias, and as an echo of reality, the backrooms seem capable of manifesting those fears. The smoke monster may not be smoke, but a manifestation of humanity's universal fear of the dark. The invisible creatures that chase us may also be a manifestation of our innate fear of being pursued, hunted. Whatever these creatures may actually be, it's very clear that they aren't real entities like Moth Man. Being near them causes our flashlight to flicker and dim with a surge of static, much like anything related to Subject 83. They are creations of Subject 83, using echoes to try and purge Site-83 of Horizon. The most enigmatic entities aside from Subject 83 itself are the Hole-Headed Specters. The smoke monster exists for a single corridor, as do the twin creatures with glowing eyes, and their role of kill anything that moves is pretty self-explanatory. Their appearances are one and done, but the Hole-Heads are seen throughout the facility. They lure 106, kill his team, and then prevent him from providing power to the laser in the boss battle, until all Horizon members lie dead, then they disappear in a flash of electricity. 1 minute they help, 1 minute they hinder, or at least that's how it appears. The Hole-Heads are likely the trapped bioelectrical signals from victims of Site-83, echoes of who they once were now bound to Subject 83. shadow puppets, ghosts. Ghosts and spirits have always had a connection with radio signals and electricity. Horror movies, books, and real-life accounts always include flickering lights, static, radio interference, and other supernatural events tied to various signals. These hole-heads may be Trepang2's interpretation of ghosts or spirits, with Subject 83 trapping people's bioelectricity within the back rooms, just like the echoing radio signals that distracted the expedition team. Evidence to support this theory can be found in their design. The hole in their head may be the missing electrical impulses from their brain, their individuality gouged out and replaced with a single giant eye that represents Subject 83 using the hole heads as its eyes to see through the facility. Their bodies are shadows coalesced into a humanoid shape that shake as if they're about to fall apart at any moment. The static they emit when approached could be the sound of their trapped electrical signals bouncing back at 106, being picked up by his comms. The TF27 mission log is a lie. We know for absolute certain that the director has no contact within the facility.
Signal's getting spotty down there. Remember to recon the area and report.
Reception's fucked. Looks like we're on our own here.
We also know that the director has no idea what's happening within Site 83, as there is no intel on the mission before arrival.
Be prepared for anything, 106.
Don't got a lot of intel on this mission. Good luck out there.
This is Subject 83 mimicking the director's voice and trying to use the squad for the same reason they use 106, to destroy the crystal. Further evidence that this is Subject 83 trickery is in the image itself, showing TF27 members disoriented and clutching their heads. The natural counterpoint of this line of thinking is that the hole heads kill the entire squad before they can destroy the crystal. If they work for or even are Subject 83, then why would it stop them? Subject 83 wants to be left alone. It is an intelligent entity that guides and manipulates both 106 and Phantom Squad to help facilitate its goal of escaping confinement. It's also a vindictive bastard. The power surge that struck the crystal hurt. The repeated electrical experiments hurt too. Horizon were never going to leave Subject 83 alone, and so Subject 83 began to fight back. Hallucinations, disappearances, fear. An echo can't physically hurt someone, but hunger and thirst can. Paranoia can. The security guard that went missing during the initial power surge was most likely the one who accidentally caused it, and Subject 83 lashed out by warping him to the backrooms to starve to death, rotting away to bones while trapped within twisted time. Dr. Romanov, likely the one in charge of the electrical experiments, is in the trash compactor. Subject 83 seems to take great delight in informing us of their demise.
Pinging Dr. Romanov. Location, sub-level B19. Trash compactor.
It doesn't just want to be left alone, it wants to torture the ones who tortured it. Subject 83 guides you to the survivors both in the present and back in time so you can clean house for it. 106's brutality makes for a great outlet for its hatred, and the laughter you hear isn't aimed at you, it's glee at the slaughter of Horizon. You are a rat in a maze for the entire mission, little more than an echo of Subject 83's spite. It's no wonder that 106 is spared at the end of the mission. You provided great entertainment. The Siberian Craters are a real-life mystery, giant chunks of Earth carved out by explosions that are, as of yet, not fully understood. The current leading theory is that trapped methane beneath the permafrost is melting and causing these eruptions, but Trepang has decided that explanation is far too boring. Site 83 is gone. Not destroyed, gone. There is no rubble, no debris. The whole base was sucked into Subject 83 and transported to the backrooms, raw material to expand the endless labyrinth. And it's not the first time this has happened. There are many Siberian craters, and the intel file describing them states that they all exude an atmosphere of unease and dread, with locals claiming ancient rituals and gods to be behind them. They aren't completely wrong. There is room for speculation on whether there are multiple shards causing these craters, or if it's exclusively Subject 83 hopping their way through Siberia in an attempt to be left alone. The possibility also exists that these craters are ripples through time, echoes of the original crater caused by 106. We may never know all the answers to Site-83, and that's a good thing. I am a firm believer that just because the developers have answers, that doesn't mean they need to tell us, the players. Site-83 works from a storytelling perspective because there are so many mysteries to uncover. We can chip away at the foundation and understand the basic premise, but the details are intentionally vague. The characters in-game don't know what's going on, and by extension, neither do we. That is what makes Site-83 such a strong story and so replayable. In terms of atmosphere, it's the closest the game ever gets to true horror, but if you aren't reading the intel files, then it comes across as a haunted house with little substance behind it. All the information is in the intel files and hidden in secret areas. With no director to feed you intel, it's all up to you to figure out what's happening. Some like this method of storytelling, some don't, but there is a story to be told here. Site-83 is also the most removed from the main campaign. Other than the presence of Horizon, this entire mission has no relevance to the overall plot, being a self-contained level that has no connections with anything or anyone save for 106. But going from most removed to most involved, it's time to round things up with Horizon HQ. 106's mission in the sewer is a ruse. The drone at the top of the tower reveals that 106 was deliberately kept underground for the initial assault to prevent cognitive dissonance, to keep him in the dark. Those vehicles you pass on the bridge aren't a defense force, they're civilians Anton tried to evacuate before the Syndicate arrived. Carpet bombed. The defense plan intel file openly shows the convoy shortly before its destruction. Throughout the building, televisions show the worldwide destruction of Horizon. Buildings, apartments, research facilities, and more are all being assaulted at the same time, barely hidden under the guise of terrorist attacks. News stations are reporting the unethical behaviour of Anton Lazar for all the world to see, while the FBI list him as their most wanted. It's over. There is no recovery from this, no final ploy that will undo all the damage done. Anton is, in essence, already dead. This last stand is barely a footnote in the deeds 106 has performed, and for the world's greatest intellect, his final plan is extremely dumb. Where are the anomalous defences, the secret projects for fighting the Syndicate? Where is the Horizon PMC force? Anton knew the Syndicate was coming, yet he couldn't redirect his military? He didn't have a single anomalous power at his disposal. His master plan is to openly transfer his consciousness to giant brains in jars and then... what? The Horizon Corporation was always meant to fall. Built from the ground up as a Syndicate front, Horizon was rotten from within. Such a colossal company could never reliably fight against a shadow organisation, no matter how many resources it could amass. With the Syndicate raiding multiple black sites and unearthing every secret plan imaginable, this civil war could only end one way: the collapse of Horizon. Anton is regarded as the brightest mind on the planet. It's hard to imagine that intellect would rely on a compromised project, even as a last-ditch effort. The WBE project from Site-14 was compromised the moment 106 escaped. Operation Brightstar, the contingency plan to liquidate the site, failed. TF27 raided the facility and learned of the WBE project in every detail, which is why the director knows what Anton is doing in the final encounter. At a glance, this means the Syndicate have won. The truth is, Anton is playing everyone for fools. Anton comes across as a good-intentioned man. Every interaction with him shows how he prioritizes safety and human life above scientific progress.
All stations, our first priority is to rescue Dr. Kramer. Secondary objective is to recover his research.
His opposition to the Syndicate seems to come from a noble heart that wants to fight global oppression. Except beneath this surface-level interpretation is a cold, calculating, utterly ruthless CEO. Isn't it strange that Horizon's entire military detail has been redirected under Anton's personal orders? Isn't it weird that out of all the black sites and anomalous research, none of it is actually being used against the Syndicate? Don't you find it odd that a genius who prioritizes human lives would wait until mere minutes before an attack to evacuate civilians in a military convoy? And if all the civilians are evacuated, who do we pass on the elevator? And now that we think about it, why would Horizon expand so aggressively into the public sector when fighting a secret civil war? Anton Lazar, Cycle 78 is using Horizon's destruction to fake his death and expose the Syndicate to the world. Horizon PMC has been redirected to ensure Horizon HQ falls and that all military surplus is secured. All the anomalous research, or more specifically the anomalous results, have been stored elsewhere. Horizon's expansion to the public sector was to provide the Syndicate with civilian targets, to stretch the company out so much that not even the guise of terrorist attacks could cover up the truth when the final blow was dealt. And as if it wasn't obvious before, Lazar is Lazarus, a name associated with resurrection. The lawyer thug enemies we encounter in Horizon HQ appear to be a final-ditch attempt at boosting the Defenders' chances against the Syndicate, but we actually see them in the Black Ops mission report intel file all the way back in Gunnison. They've been in operation long before now and appear to be the only enhanced soldiers at Anton's disposal, but calling them soldiers isn't right. As their name suggests, they're more like office workers given super strength. Their call-outs aren't professional, their attitudes rough and egotistical, they're enhanced thugs with shotguns. This is Anton's personal security detail, presumably hand-picked out of those who helped him create Horizon and powered up through anomalous means. They are the brawn to Anton's brains and aren't afraid of getting their hands dirty, but they've expended their usefulness. Anton may be stockpiling assets, but the lawyer thugs are not one of them. If you fail to destroy the giant brains in time, 106 will clutch his head as Anton apologizes and you get a game over.
Sorry, 6. This is my own.
The reason for this is that 106 is a compatible brain donor, confirmed all the way back in Site 14. The plan was to overwrite 106's mind and replace it with Anton's. All the people very loudly sacrificed for this final plan are giving their lives for a fake goal, a smokescreen to hide the real target of the memory transfer: you. When Ken Takaguchi proposed using real brains instead of emulation all the way back in Site 14, an idea was formed. Subject 106 was in custody, a prime candidate to try this radical shift in the WPE project. Serenity was the music that pacified him, but the video was an experiment to see how receptive 106 was to Anton Lazar's memories. His memories of destroying the original TF27 facility. The main hub of the game is not the original Task Force 27 base. Upon our first arrival, we can see boxes and equipment through the window that changes after every mission. After Pandora, we hear the PA system tell the excavation team to cease work for the day.
Attention, expeditionary team. Excavation duties has been cancelled for the day. Please return to your stations.
And if we double back inside 83, we can overhear our two squad mates discuss the state of the facility.
These motherfuckers set up floodlights, but they don't have the common decency to change a fucking light bulb?
Probably spent all their pocket change excavating this place. You're giving Horizon Logistics too much credit. This whole facility looks jerry-rigged. There's exposed rocks everywhere. Non-standard architecture. Light fixtures barely fucking work. I doubt they planned everything through before the jump.
Anton always knew where the original base was. After all, he was born there, and likely returned to it frequently while active as an obedient cycle. His rebellion exists to break the cycle, to stop the cloning process, so his first target would almost certainly have been a surprise attack on the base. While the assault ultimately failed, TF27 had to relocate to a place Anton didn't know about, and that is how the Safe House became the Syndicate's staging ground for the war against Horizon. After all, it is quite literally called a safe house. The original base likely had a nuke similar to the one the current safe house has, and that big red button was pushed, either by TF27 to prevent total takeover, or by Anton in an attempt to break the cycle. The entire facility was vaporized with TF27 fading into the shadows and Horizon licking their wounds, and 106 captured and on the way to Site 14. It's strange how everyone at TF27 introduces themselves as if for the first time when you arrive at the safe house.
It's a pleasure to finally meet you, 106. Welcome to Task Force 27. You're one of us now.
106, this is Raven. I'll be your pilot from now on.
Horizon's good
is dead now that you're on the team.
Surely if 106 had been an active cycle beforehand, then they would know him, and vice versa? If his memories had been erased, then wouldn't they make a point of saying so, rather than pretending they just so happened to bump into one another at Site 14? The likely explanation for this is that 106 was taken during the Horizon assault, before he was ready to be activated. It would explain why he is mute, psychopathic, and such a threat to all sides. Nobody dares to go near him in the safe house after all, with everyone safely watching behind bulletproof glass. Yet every other cycle, Anton, Emerson, Patriarch, the Enforcer, even 105, act like normal people. They walk and talk, less so 105, and blend in with humanity. But not 106. Was it a design decision during his creation, or is this the case of a prototype being ripped off the shelf before it's ready? We're never actually told about 106's capture, only that a lot of people died as a result, so while speculative, it remains as one of the more logical theories. Of course, with 106's capture and Ken Takiguchi's proposal, a new way to infiltrate and destroy the Syndicate became available to Horizon: Operation Pestilence. It's a genius plan for a genius mind. If Anton can rewrite 106's brain, then he can stroll into the TF27 Safe House, press a big red button, and lose absolutely nothing in the process. A hidden infection that nobody could see or anticipate. 106 was rescued from Site 14 before this plan could be realised, but that didn't mean it was the end. After all, Operation Pestilence is ongoing. Everything Anton says to 106 is an attempt to break the Syndicate brainwashing.
Not even 1 week since your escape, and you've already destroyed one of my facilities. Allow me to make one thing clear, 6. You were never supposed to be a weapon.
Is an outright lie from every conceivable angle. The Syndicate built 106 to slaughter their enemies, and had Operation Pestilence worked, he would be a nuke-shaped weapon obliterating TF27. Even now, breaking 106's conditioning is an attempt to make him defect and join the fight against the Syndicate. Still a weapon, just in someone else's hands. In fact, Anton Lazar himself may be in a very similar situation, as in the incineration cutscene we see a familiar message play on his phone. Who is sending the drones? It isn't Horizon, as the drones not only appear in the TF27 Safe House, but it's hard to believe Anton is sending messages to himself. It isn't the Syndicate, as the drones outright tell us that the director is lying to us after she gives us a nuclear tour. The only answer is that an unknown third party has been manipulating events behind the shadow of the Shadow Organization. We have no information on this third party, but we can be certain that they have contacted Anton Lazar, the Patriarch, and 106. Anton's interaction is obvious and culminates with this cutscene. The drones are the first time we hear of a cycle, all the way back in Site 14. They encourage us to think for ourselves, offering information that 106 could never acquire on his own. This is exactly how the Patriarch behaves, and his insistence that his legacy be nothing but the words are a clear indicator that he was contacted by this third party. But who are they? Who would have a specific interest in the cycles to the point where they repeatedly free these clones from Syndicate conditioning? With the absence of evidence, the best conclusion we can reasonably make is the only kind of third party that would care so deeply about breaking the cycle would be other cycles. Let me reiterate, there is no evidence as to who this third party really is, only that they exist. It could be revealed in a sequel that the third party is someone who claimed they hated cyclists and someone misheard him. But it's time to wrap things up. We've reached the end of the lore dump and concluded that there is definitely a very well thought out and engaging story hidden in Trepang. The game is specifically designed for you to not know everything on your first playthrough, and once you're given the twist as 106 is being burned alive, you're meant to piece together all the disjointed information and realise the story is much more complex than it appears. This approach has obviously missed the mark with a lot of players, especially reviewers, and it isn't their fault. The story relies heavily on players only having a surface level understanding of each mission. You're meant to be kept in the dark. The care center was actually bad is as far as many players will go when analysing Pandora for the first time. Wacky cult Cult Shenanigans is a summary of Yorvik for many never even knowing Patriarch is a cycle. The flying fuck is up with Site 83 is a question that we'll never answer. I mean, what the hell? To understand the story, you have to go back and replay the levels to recontextualize everything, and even then you need intel files in order to put you on the right track, many of which are hidden. There are also key pieces of dialogue you can skip by murdering the ones talking, a problem highlighted by many HVTs not getting a chance to say their voice lines. If you play the game as intended, you will miss information that is critical to realizing that there's actually a story behind your murderous rampage. A story that ends in incineration. A story that ends... You didn't think 106 would just roll over, did you? Welcome to the true final level, Task Force 27. Betrayed by your comrades and with Raven out of the picture, there is nothing holding you back from doing what we should have done. From doing what we already did after the Pandora Institute. The Incinerator report shows that every cycle ends up here, from Emerson to Anton. The Patriarch only escapes this fate because of insufficient remains. It is so satisfying to hear the entirety of Task Force 27 shit bricks at the same time. Everyone is scrambling to evacuate as you begin to dismantle the facility.
Someone's reached the clearing chamber. We need backup. Reinforcements are on the way. Stay put.
Everyone except the director.
Start the next cycle. Initiating cycle 107.
Your immediate successor, Subject 107. The second intel file gathered here states that armor and speed improvements were recommended, and they sure as hell were implemented. There is speculation on whether the person being shown is Subject 106 or 107, but I personally lean to it being 107. The reason being that this is discussing improving the next cycle, so it makes sense to show the cycle that's being improved. It also matches 107's design, which once again proves the Patriarch right. This is the final boss. A 3-phase brawl with a cycle custom made to be better than you. And he runs away. This level is tight, claustrophobic, and dripping with atmosphere. There is precious little to say gameplay-wise here. It's pure combat, pure Trepang, and a climactic showdown in an environment we've been calling home for the entire game. Huh. Our home has a lot of C4. 107 is a great boss design with clearly telegraphed attacks shown by the coloured glint in his eyes that tells you when to dodge. His varied moveset allows for some tense encounters as he goes invisible constantly, revealing himself only to attack. Unfortunately, this invisibility is a little undercooked, or should I say overcooked. You see, the shotgun has an incendiary round attachment. Said attachment leaves fire particles on enemies shot with it, meaning you can track 107. It's definitely an unintended interaction, and one that I think cheapens the experience. And it's not the only problem the shotgun brings to the table. Almost every attack involves 107 getting into melee. Not only can each attack be dodged by sliding backwards, but there is no better weapon for blasting people up close than the shotgun. Combine this with the aura-revealing incendiary rounds, and you're heavily encouraged to use the shotgun over any other weapon. 107 once again runs away like a coward, but this time it's because the whole stage is rigged to blow. All you need to do is run up to a computer, press a button, and disarm the bombs. Hey, I'm gonna need that back. Hey, remember that amoral, unethical scientist that ran Pandora into the ground? Turns out he may have been a defector. This monitor shows that someone at the Pandora Institute defected to the Syndicate 10 years ago. They were transferred to the Institute 2 years ago, then promoted to senior researcher only a year later. In fact, this person leaked Site 14's blueprints to TF27 right before 106's rescue. Is this Dr. Kramer? Well, he is in charge of the Pandora Institute, but whether that title is senior researcher or not is unknown. After all, we're fighting Moth Man, not rifling through HR. The more convincing evidence is actually found in Yorvik. The audio of Kramer meeting the TF27 squad doesn't exactly sound like a snatch and grab, they sound like an escort.
I'm not a child, I can walk on my own!
He's even giving them directions.
We're headed underground. We'll find a place to hold out. No, you idiot! Not there! Other way! It's incoming, damn it!
Maybe that heart monitor wasn't rigged exclusively to Horizon. Maybe he wasn't sabotaging the Pandora Institute for science. Maybe I forgot we just lost an arm. Mechanically, losing your hand makes your health bar red and you can't dual wield. Then you realise you can't throw grenades or take enemies hostage anymore, and reloading takes forever. Overall, a bad oh. Thankfully, 106 is right-handed and can still fight, because the final showdown is right in front of the nuke itself.
Don't let him detonate that nuke!
And just like that, the game is over. 106 finally broke free of his Syndicate conditioning and destroyed the cycle program in its entirety, dying in the process. As the true final level, the TF27 base is excellent. A personal story of betrayal and revenge through nuclear destruction brings the entire campaign to a close. The only downside to this level is that you can't select it as a mission to replay. If you want to fight 107 again, then you have to replay all of the Horizon HQ first. Then, when you return to the hub, it automatically kicks you into this mission. It's clunky, awkward, and I don't know why it's like this. But aside from that bump in the road, it is an excellent end to an excellent game. While a bittersweet ending, wait, what? Oh, of course there's a secret ending. If you find every single drone in the game and replay the final level, you get this.
Welcome back, 6. We're not done with you yet.
You were never Subject 106. You are a person whose brain has just been rewired to completely match 106 just before he engaged 107 for the final time. This final twist leaves us with several questions, along with many loose ends I haven't covered in this video. That's because the answers lie outside of the base game. To tie everything together and finish this deep dive analysis of Trepang, join me in part 3 where we discuss the game's paid DLC, Survival Mode, and Blade Kisser.